I just read a fascinating article yesterday in the New Yorker that was talking about how the question it was asking is solitary confinement in U.S. prisons a form of torture? And the reason that this article is so interesting is because, among other things, it was talking about how there was a man, I've forgotten his name now, but he did some studies with rhesus monkeys where he looked at the impacts of isolation on these monkeys as they were being raised. So if you took a monkey away from its family and raised it in isolation, what were the psychological impacts of that? And he actually fostered the beginning of the PETA movement because of the tests that he did. Many people thought that they were so cruel that it actually the reaction started the PETA movement. But what he found was that individuals who are isolated at birth, monkeys in this case, are socially, what he called socially destroyed. Without that kind of interaction, that they just cannot develop normally and can actually die. They become psychotic, will kill themselves, maim themselves, things like that. And when you look, I'm in a child, and when you look at birthing practices in the United States and the isolation that is involved in that, in other words, a baby is taken away from its mother at the moment of birth and put into a bin with a blanket for several hours where it's isolated from all the other babies. And we do this to prevent the spread of disease, but the implications are profound. And the effect that it has on our culture is profound. And one of the things that this doctor found with these monkeys was, and the way that they discovered all this was they noticed how when the monkeys were raised, they were raised only with a blanket and some food. And so as they became adults, they would cling incredibly tightly to these blankets. And one current that's happening in American culture that most people are not aware of is when we are separated from our mothers at birth, there's a profound bonding detachment that happens. And Joseph Chilton Pearce, in his book Magical Child, talks about the incredible importance of the first hour of birth when the child bonds with the mother. And it sets, in a way, it sets the tone for the rest of that child's life of the way it relates to other human beings. And so in a culture where we're systematically removed at birth and put into isolation, we begin to relate to objects instead of people. And I mean, it's my personal theory, and I think it's backed up by some other people, that people turn to objects and technology as a way because they don't know how to bond, and they're seeking some kind of nourishment, which of course we've never really met by technology. And it's sad. It's problematic. And I think if there's any doulas listening right now, they probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I'd like to piggyback.
Yeah, go ahead, Catherine.
Thank you. I'd like to piggyback on that a little bit too, because there's a story I heard. Again, this is Africa, where the women carry their babies with them, and the children hardly even touch the ground for the first year or so. And somebody wondered, well, what happens when the child has to go to the bathroom? And the mother knows. She just picks it up and turns, and the child pees into the bush, and then she puts it back on. She is so entwined with that child that she's able to feel the child's needs as her own. And we are so far away from that. And we do it, just as you say, because we take this newborn baby and put it in its own room, which doesn't do anybody any good.
Yeah, there's a movie that I'd urge people to see, which is fascinating on this topic. Exactly. It's called The Business of Birth. And Ricki Lake, actually, she's had 2 children, I believe. And the first child she had in the traditional way, going to the hospital. And what's happened is hospitals have actually made birthing a business. And if the women aren't giving birth quick enough, they give them drugs, and the drugs counteract the natural process. And eventually, there are more and more C-sections that are happening because of a result of the unnatural way things are happening, and just the way that hospitals have made it into a business. of birthing.
Okay.
So if anybody's interested, check out that show. It's fascinating. You get to actually see some live births on camera, which is so rare and unique. The other thing they mentioned on this documentary is exactly what you guys are talking about, is when if there's a natural birth, there are certain hormones that are released that actually are love hormones that bond the mother and the child together. And what happens with a C-section is when you're cut open, those hormones don't activate. So these children are coming into the world, and that natural bonding to the mother isn't happening on the hormonal level. And so you're not